right, we are live on Facebook. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great interview I've got coming up for you. I'm saying it's great because the person I'm going to interview today, Melanie Benson, is, like me, very much involved in working with business owners, very much involved in what I call sort of the advanced thought, rather than the standard, hey, let me show you how to build a landing page. Let me show you how to build an email list, right? I think we all sort of began there, but over time we've gotten more evolved and we've grown our message. And she's really looking at what I call, or what she calls, I love the term, I'm going to get you in a minute on this one because it's really good, but leadership with is it leadership with grace?
Yeah, leading with grace.
Leading with grace. I love leading with grace. Now we're going to be talking about today something that she's passionate about and also I'm passionate about. We had a phone call about 3 weeks ago, I think. We talked on the phone. And we connected. We actually met, I'm going to guess, 2003?
Yeah.
At a seminar, a live seminar. We didn't really talk much, a lot of stuff going on, but we reconnected on Facebook, obviously. Thank you, Facebook. Reconnected with all my old friends here. And one of the cool things, we had a conversation and we realized that we're both thinking the same way about this idea called wealth. And one of the challenges that we run into, we all have been, certainly me, I've been involved in teaching people internet marketing since, believe it or not, 1995. It's been a long time. And the frustrations are always the same. It's like you teach everyone in the room the same strategies, and they work for me, they work for one or two people in the room, but everybody else completely fails. And you go, okay, what's really going on here? Because I'm not happy walking out of a seminar room that people have paid to attend, and I deliver the best I can deliver as far as content goes, and I don't see the results from everybody out there. It's like one or two will be successful, the rest of them, they struggle. So I often ask the question, what's going on behind that? Melanie and I got on the phone, and all of a sudden, what was supposed to be a 15-minute call turned out to be like an hour because we started to get into this conversation about this, and I thought it would be really great to have her here today to share some of the strategies, some of the things that are behind wealth building that you may not necessarily think about. Mindset obviously being the core issue, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. And we're going to have a little chat today because I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So I want to welcome you here, and I want to welcome Melanie. Melanie, thank you for being here today.
I'm so glad to be here. It's awesome.
I'm having fun already. We haven't even begun. We're just getting loaded up here.
Yeah, well, that's how we roll.
that conversation we had on the phone was really interesting because there are a lot of people I speak to who are really stuck in the old way of thinking. It's like, well, let's just build your mailing list, or just come up with another strategy, or just do another piece. And you and I, we sort of, we're kind of beyond that now, right?
It's the doing, stuck in the doing.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a long time. We've seen it, and you see a lot of people who aren't successful with it.
Or they get stuck.
They
can't get past a certain plateau.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to me about where your energy is on that, because I know you and I share that very much in common.
Well, I think it all starts with our mindset and the thoughts, the ideas, the beliefs, what's going on up here. And, you and I went to a lot of the same events. We've kind of traveled the same paths, and we meet a lot of the same people. And I started to realize myself that a lot of people were stuck, and they were learning great things. They knew what they should be doing, but they don't. They don't take the action. And so it got me really curious, partly because I had my own experience with that, but partly because I'm really curious. I like people to be able to get fast results when I work with them around their business. And I realize there are so many people who are not getting results because they can't take action. So what causes people to procrastinate? What causes people to get stuck? What causes them to plateau and feel like they can't get to that next level of success? And I realized one of the common denominators was that the way they are thinking, the paradigm, the blueprint that their mind is operating in causes them to see opportunities that are very limited. They focus on what's not working. They focus on the problems. They get stuck in what we might call stinking thinking, and they can't get out of it. And so they've literally convinced themselves and wrapped themselves in this world where they can't get where they want to go, and they feel stuck. And sometimes they start to feel pretty hopeless there.
Well, it all begins at childhood, right? So this is how we're trained by our parents. I mean, I grew up in that household where money was not easy to come by.
Right.
And, the conversation always was, we don't have enough, we don't have enough, we don't have enough, we can't get it. And my parents fought constantly over money issues,
Yes.
right? That's probably the number one thing that you see people getting divorced over is money issues.
Yes.
And it's this mindset, and you say, okay, as a little 5-year-old, 6-year-old, this is what you're experiencing, this is what you're seeing. Now, as an adult, have you learned anything different, or are you operating on that old paradigm?
Yeah, and actually, the imprints, I call them imprints, that are given to us at early childhood, they create a conditioning for the way the neurons, we all have these neurons that fire. Basically, a stimulus happens, a neuron fires, and we repeat patterns, we repeat activities, we repeat thought patterns based on that initial stimulation, that initial conditioning. And I actually learned this firsthand for myself, because when I first started my business back in 2000, big vision, lots of ideas, lots of excitement, lots of passion. I couldn't wait to leave my corporate job and get going. And 18 months in, I'm broke. I can't get past $1,000 a month. I've learned all the stuff, right? Like, I knew what to do, but I couldn't get action. I couldn't get results. And I realized the way I was thinking, the thoughts that I ran through my head were causing me to have beliefs that, you can't do that because that's not what good coaches do. That's not what people want from you. All of these things that caused me to not do the very things that would work. I have a client right now, and I love this woman. She's so smart, so brilliant. And Barbara, she's completely stuck in not taking action because she's so much fear about what people might think, or how, that's going to be uncomfortable to do. And all it is what's going on up here in her head. She's got these thoughts and these fears and these beliefs about herself that keep her stuck. What I came to realize is there's a lot of barriers that we create for ourselves, and there's three main ones.
Oh, yes.
You want me to talk about the three main ones?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's go there.
Okay. And one of them is a common, very, very common one. Everybody knows this is the big one. It's fear, right? The fear of what might happen, the fear of what might not happen, the fear of what people will think, the fear of what if I lose everything, if I take this big risk in this gamble. But what we don't realize is that fear actually is very subtle. It's almost like a stealth mentality, that if we're fear-driven and we tend to do things based on fear, we either hold back or make a decision to minimize, we call it fear avoidance, minimize how something could happen to us that might be bad. What we actually are doing is we oftentimes listen to a logic brain. The logic brain says, don't do that, that's going to hurt, or, oh my gosh, what would people think? Who are you to think you could do this? You don't have the resources for this, you don't have the money for this. So we make decisions to avoid something happening that logic brain says, there's a very logical reason why you shouldn't do this right now. And that's one of the reasons why fear is so
And I'll go one step further
huge.
with it, because the fears, you're right, you're absolutely right about this, and one step further, I think I find even myself doing this, is we build the box out to the edge of our fear.
Yes.
Right? And we live within those limits, and
Yes.
we build them, and we say, I can go this far, but I can't go that far. Classic
Because that might
example.
hurt.
Right, classic example, for years we've been teaching people to build mailing lists, right? And here they are, they build the mailing list, and they say, how many times have you mailed your mailing list? They go, well, I haven't. Right?
What
so
will
they've
they
gone
think?
to the edge of they've gone to the edge of their fear, and
Yes.
they said the fear is too great, and I'm not going to take that next step.
That's fear avoidance.
It's fear avoidance, and
Yes.
you look at the way you build a business. You've got to do these things, right?
Yeah.
Now, Facebook Live is another one. I talk to people
Sure.
all the time about, Facebook Live. You're a chiropractor. This would be like the greatest thing in the world for you to do to build your practice, and just the thought of having a camera on in front of them, where people might actually see them.
They don't want to be
Conversation-
seen?
And the conversation ends at that point.
Yes. So here's where that childhood piece comes into play, though, because we talked about we avoid things that we have fear about. Well, many times there's a let me put it a better way. There's a subconscious reason. There's something that's lingering in the back of your mind, and a distant memory that you don't have conscious memories of, that's causing you to not want to be seen, or that you have a really valid reason, but it has to do with something that happened when you were a child. It has nothing to do with who you are as an adult. And this kind of leads me into what I call success barrier number 2. It's something I call internal conflict. Because when two parts of you go to war, the part of you that wants more success goes to war with the part of you that's deeply afraid of something bad happening, right? So you get into this paralyzed state, like, I don't know what to do. I had a client one time who she had something traumatic happen as a young person, and she was so afraid to get visible that she sabotaged.
The confused mind always says no.
Yes,
Right?
right, exactly. Yeah. The confused mind always says no.
That's right.
And a conflicted mind doesn't do anything. Or you take 2 steps back, and then you take about 2 steps forward, and you take about 10 steps back, because you're thinking, This is getting a little scary. One of the big ones that happens is people who they something that they value or is a big priority, like family time or their independence or their freedom, and they make up a story in their mind that if I go towards that and I start getting close to it, I'm going to lose something that I value. And they don't want to lose that thing, so unconsciously they blow it up, they sabotage, they put the brakes on. So I call it internal conflict. And it's really, most people don't know they're doing it.
But you know the strategy is if you're on the ladder, right, and you're holding on to that rung, how do you get to the next one? You've got to let go of something to get the next rung, to move up to the next level. And that is scary for a lot of people, and that's when you're right, they do get frozen.
Especially when you have a fear of heights.
Yeah.
Or a fear of success.
Let's not even go there, but it's really true. You've got to let go to be able to move to the next step.
Yeah, and oftentimes trust the unknown. If you're a how person, I need to know how, I need to know what I do next. Trusting that gap in between can be really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you end up with a lot of that when people come to you, and you probably experience the same thing I do when coaching clients come. It's like they come to me and they hire me primarily to figure out the how-to.
Yes.
And how often do we get into coaching with people and it's not the how-to?
Yeah.
Right? I always say, nobody needs another damn marketing strategy, right? That's not where it's at. People's like, oh, if I just had, if I could figure out Facebook ads, I'd be, no. I could show you Facebook ads. I can show you how to get a ton of traffic. But if everything else isn't working, you're just throwing money down the tube and you're creating absolutely nothing.
Yeah, because what happens is we get into motion for the sake of motion. We don't know where we're going. We don't really have clarity about what the end game is. We just know we're supposed to be moving, but what we're doing is we're burning a lot of time, we're burning a lot of money, we're burning energy, but we're not necessarily going anywhere. And there's different blueprints that I think people run. One of them is what I call the busy addict. It's like, I need to feel good about myself, so I'm just going to be busy. And being busy means that I feel like I'm accomplishing something, but you may not actually be accomplishing anything.
I fall into the category of the busy person. I do that. That's my strategy for avoidance, is just keep busy, keep rolling. And I attribute that to my time working in the corporate world.
Me too, because you're rewarded for being busy.
You're rewarded for being busy, and you're scrutinized when they see you just sitting there not doing anything.
Yes.
And I had one boss. The last job I had, he was very innovative. And he said to me, I don't care, Rob, if I see you staring out the window. So long as you're thinking about this business and coming up with better strategies, it doesn't matter to me. But I'd already been trained the other way. I'd been working for a defense contractor before that as a photographer, industrial photographer. And it was crack the whip, crap the whip. You've got to be busy. When, you never knew when the higher ups are going to walk in, and they never want to see you doing nothing. You've got to be busy. So we've learned that.
Yes.
And now we're into this entrepreneurial world, and now we've got to unlearn that. We've got to do something different.
That was actually my biggest pattern to break coming out of corporate. I'd been in corporate for 15 years, and I had to figure out how to be productive and what productive meant, because I was just used to working 12 to 15 hours a day. And that was where, I teach a lot of people leverage. It's one of the ways you can automate more success, more money. And that I had to realize that as an entrepreneur, you have to be drastically different in your productivity than when you work for someone else, because it has to tie to revenue, not just getting random activities done.
Right. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many times you checked your email or how many times you check your Facebook.
Right.
Is that making you money? Yes or no? No, but it feels good. Right?
Yeah. Well, and also it comes down to opportunity, right? Like, how many times have you said yes to something and then realized that I said yes to the wrong thing? I said yes to something and it's not going anywhere. Why did I commit to this? This is a complete waste of time, because we get used to saying yes and getting approval from other people, or we don't like to say no. Again, it goes back to a belief. I'm going to let somebody down. There's limited opportunities in the world. If there's not enough opportunities, then if I don't say yes to this, I won't get another one, right? It's all tied into belief and what we see as the paradigm of success.
And we know it to be the opposite.
Yes.
We know it's better to say no to a lot of things, and then you make yourself a little bit more exclusive. And we've taught this for years with people in business. Don't say yes to everything. Say yes to the things that make a difference, things that you really want to do.
Yeah.
And you become more exclusive, and then you can raise your rates a little bit.
Right. And you also are going to get more traction from the things you are doing, because if you've got too much on your plate, your energy's compromised, your focus is compromised. You don't do as good a job on the things that you have on your plate because you're stretched too thin.
So true.
Overwhelm.
So true. Yeah. So when you're working with, I guess primarily business owners, let's keep the conversation to them because that's really the audience that we're attracting
Some
here.
service-based people, some service professionals, yeah.
Other coaches, and
Yeah.
I know the best way to describe you is you're the one who works with the thought leaders, the cream of the cream. You're the
Yes.
trainer for the trainers is the way I would look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leader of leaders is another way
Leader
people
of
put
leaders,
it. Yeah.
right. So do you see some of the problems that we'll talk about the general public and we'll separate them from the leaders. Do you see similarities between the two?
Between
and
the
struggling?
people who are struggling and the people who really kind of
Right.
get to that top
To
tier?
get to that point, but they're still experiencing the struggle because they're not
Yeah.
exactly where they want to be.
Yes, actually, and this is not because the subject is about mindset today, but mindset actually, I think, dictates success. If you ask people who are highly successful, they will tell you that the way they think and the way they have conditioned their mind, by the way, most people who are successful didn't have successful mindsets to start. They cultivated a mind that could achieve high levels of success. They trained their mind to think a certain way because that would be the result, it helped them condition the result. And by the way, a quick formula, everything you think is dictating your actions, and those actions are dictating results because how you feel every day is causing you to want to do it or not want to do it. What you tell yourself about an activity makes you passionate about it or makes you dread it. And highly successful people have conditioned their mind to somehow get good with the activities they have to do to achieve the results they want. And then they're also really good at parsing out what needs to get off my plate, the saying no, the deleting, the delegating, because they know they only have so much time to dedicate to the activities that will get them the farthest.
Where do they start? Because like you and I, we've had the corporate upbringing.
Sure.
And we went to regular public schools and universities and such, and basically all of those things teach us to be great employees.
Yes.
But with the entrepreneurial mindset, it's
So true.
completely different than the employee mindset. You've got to see things at a bigger level. You've got to you're parsing your time a lot differently. You have to sort through a lot more. I had a boss I worked for last time I worked in the corporate world back in 1995, and I would bring him ideas, I would bring him new strategies, and he would say to me, Rob, these are really good, but that's not our business. And he was really good at doing that. And of
Yes.
course, he had a $150 million business. We had like 50, 60 employees there. And, really, I got that lesson from him. It's like he knew right away that fits or that doesn't fit. And there was no more discussion about it. There wasn't like I could get in there and convince him and twist his arm a little bit. No, it didn't fit. Next.
Yeah. So I'm an optimizer. I figure out what works, what doesn't work, and how to do more of the things that work. And one of the things you're just describing right now is the idea that the things that will get you the results, you got to figure out how to create space for more of them, right? So that means you have to decide what are the things that you do that are in your genius. What are the things that you do that will actually attract your clients? Because there's a lot of things we can do, right? But if we don't know who our ideal clients are, we're not going to be attracting them. So it's all about how do I make the line between what I do and the results I get the smallest and the most direct. But if we go back to mindset for a second, when I think about optimizing our mindset, what happens is that there are little thoughts that we think that limit us all day long. And if we want to basically catapult, we want to leap, which for many of us is what we have to do. Most of us are taking incremental steps. We're making incremental changes. And yeah, it fine-tunes it. But if you want a big leap in results, you got to make a big leap in mindset. You got to be willing to do things radically different, right?
Right.
So I think one of the biggest ones is you have to start thinking like the successful person you want to become. One of my biggest leaps came from, I started every day when I was making $1,000 a month, saying, what would I do differently today if I already made six figures? How would I think? What decisions would I make? And what would I invest in? I invested in a really, really good mentor and coach. I started building a team before I had the funds to pay for it. Now, some people think that's crazy, right? Like that's too risky. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. You have to invest in the outcomes you want, not where you are today, because that's what causes you to get more resourceful. It's what causes you to take better actions, and it's what propels you energetically. And like you get fired up and you're like, I'm on fire, I got to go do this today, right? You're not going to do that if you're
That's
playing
right.
it safe and just doing little incremental things.
Exactly. And it's something that's hard to learn because, like you said, the best way to get it is to hire a mentor, someone who knows it and gets it.
Big difference.
You're not going to get it from a book. I know a lot of people say, I'll just read a book about it. Great, you're going to read the book. Your level of engagement is going to be here, and you'll fall asleep, and maybe you'll remember it, maybe you won't. Your retention on a book is what, 10%?
It creates a knowing. It's a seed that gets planted.
Right.
But you can't customize what you need to do for you when it's just knowledge.
Exactly. So you're right about hiring the mentor or the coach. I did the same thing when I first got started and really getting involved in the entrepreneurial world. I didn't have the funds either. And what I would do is I would exchange services for coaching.
Yes.
Right? So I would do trades, and that's how I got the first few people to sort of sit down with me and mentor me. And one of my great strategies back then was they didn't have the money. Hey, I'd invite them out to dinner. Right? Hey, how would you like to join me, one night for dinner? We'll have a little chat. And it's like, and they would say, yeah, sure, no problem. And then we'd sit down at dinner and I would ask my questions, and that's where it started for me. It's really to get that input.
Yeah, and what you're saying is start somewhere. You don't have to do it perfectly. You have to be willing to take some action now, and it's probably going to make you uncomfortable. And if it's not making you uncomfortable, it's probably not a big enough action that's going to get you bigger, better results.
Yeah, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, we know the definition of insanity.
Yeah,
right?
And you keep doing what you're already doing, you're going to keep getting what you have right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, if that were good enough, you probably wouldn't be here. Okay, I want to shift the conversation now to money topics, because that's where I think people really struggle with this idea of, and I think that the scarcity mindset is probably one of the big ones. You probably run into that a lot with people.
Scarcity and struggle.
There's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough, I don't know what to do.
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough. And they keep replaying that over and over in their minds, and as they keep replaying it, of course, they manifest
exactly what they have.
Exactly
Nothing.
what they have. More
Struggle.
of the same, more of the same, more of the same. And it doesn't improve.
Right.
So where do you start with clients when with coming to you specifically for, hey, help me with my financial issues? What do I do?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, first is I have to decipher, is it a mindset issue or is it a focus issue? And yes, there are a little bit of a connection between them, but with a mindset issue, is it a belief system that's running that's causing this person to make really bad choices? I had a client who went through my Money DNA program one time she was a virtual assistant, and she was really good, really committed, really loyal. She was like the gem everybody looks for, but she was charging $20 an hour. And the going rate for someone who's really good is somewhere between 35 and 45. And when you're a specialist, you can even go up into 55, maybe even 60, depending on the depth of your expertise. And what she'd done is she'd set her business model up for struggle because she had a belief that she had to work hard to achieve more. That if she wasn't working 12, 14 hours a day, she probably wasn't ever going to get rich.
Well, don't beat her up for that. That's what we're taught in school,
I know,
right?
it's a conditioning, right?
Yeah, it's conditioning. It's absolutely that.
But
And we're taught we've got to work hard, we've got to do our homework. It's like, homework? Wait a minute. It doesn't even make sense when you get out into the real world, because the first thing they tell you is, don't bring your work home with you. So why are we taught to do homework in school?
Again, we're not trained to be entrepreneurs, we're trained to be employees, right?
But you still don't bring your work home with you if you're an employee. I mean, it just doesn't. So yeah, we were taught that we got to work hard to achieve, and yeah, there's some truth to that, but I think no.
But it's a strategy, right?
Right.
Like the strategy gets locked in. If I'm not working harder, then I'm not getting more. And here's the other thing. She also had an under-earning blueprint. And an under-earning blueprint is, I'm not worth it to charge more. Nobody's going to buy it. So when you put a under-earner with I have to work too hard, work more, what you get is somebody who's struggling, charging the bare minimum and trying to work more in order to make more, instead of raise their prices to make more.
Right.
So with her, it was a belief, and then it was a focus issue. We had to refocus her on what is the better way to leverage her time, her talent, and her energy so that she could grow her business. And so she had to have the mindset shift before she could embrace it. She was fighting it, resisting it, because the belief wasn't there. So that's what you have to do. You have to figure out what's the belief that's in the way, and then follow it up with a strategy that you can sustain.
And I find too that a lot of people undercharge, and the reason they undercharge is because it comes too easy for them. So I can do this skill. I can build a computer. Take me 20 minutes to build a computer. No problem, no sweats. Easiest thing in the world. So I don't charge for it because it doesn't seem like it's worth a lot. But then I never think of it from the perspective of the customer who can't build a computer. What is the value of doing that?
Right.
Right? So we always tend to undervalue what we're best at. And I just find this fascinating, but we do it all the time. All of us do that.
Yes, we do. And it's, again, really important to understand the beliefs underneath that. Because if you don't value what you do because you believe that you're not valuable, or you have self-worth issues, or you have confidence issues, it'll tie in and it'll cause you to struggle against raising your prices. See, most people, you point out and you go, you're undercharging, and they'll be like, okay, I'll charge more. I mean, that's what every time I raise my prices, it was because, like, I think I'm not charging enough. It's too easy. Like, getting the clients is too easy. They're saying yes really fast. Like, maybe I should raise my prices. So I would get to, $15,000, $25,000, and when you start to get price resistance, you're like, okay, maybe I'm in my sweet spot right now, right? Or you have to learn how to explain your value better. But that being said, if you have a belief that you're not worth it, you will not raise your prices because the fear of rejection is too great.
I saw that. When I first started coaching, I was $75 an hour. That's where I started.
Wow.
Right? I started there, and I had a hard time getting clients.
Yes.
Nobody would hire me at $75
Yes,
an
because
hour.
that the projection that he must not be very valuable if he's only
Exactly.
charging
It was
$75 an hour.
1995. Who was doing coaching
Oh.
back then, right? We were just getting started
He's
in
such
this
a
whole world.
trendsetter.
And then I had what peaked out for me was what lawyers charge. I don't know why, because when I was living on Long Island, I was working in Brooklyn and Queens. I worked with a lot of lawyers, and they were my clients, so I knew what they charge, $125 an hour. So I thought, well, I'm not a lawyer. I never went to law school. I can't charge $125 for coaching. And then what I found was when I moved the 75 up to 95, up to 125, I kind of got stuck there for a little while because
Yeah.
I thought that was the limit of what I could charge for this sort of thing. And of course, it took me a while to get past that and realize, oh, there's a lot more value here. I started to ask the question, what is it worth if I could get on the phone with somebody and solve something that's been keeping them back and open them up and their life completely changes? What's the value of that? It took me a long time to see it because it came so natural to me to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, it took a while.
Yes, I would completely agree. And again, it's a blind spot, right?
Right.
This is why hiring a coach is so important. Or another thing, too, that a lot of people don't understand can have such a huge impact is change your environment. When you're spending time with people who are making $5,000 an hour or $1,000 an hour or even like $5,000 a day and you're struggling to get $200 a day, it changes your thinking radically. So all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, if they can do that, why can't I do that? And then you start to look for the path to get there. And that was a big thing that shifted for me back early in my business was I was surrounded with these A-game entrepreneurs who were making big six figures at the time. And I'm thinking, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Because I'm just as smart, right?
Right.
You start to look for the path that they've taken and it makes it shorter.
It's such a good lesson to learn. I mean, for me, it was exactly that. I started to watch, I think Jay Abraham was the very first one. And he published something, and he says, I charge $5,000 an hour.
I remember that.
And I thought it was unfathomable that anybody would pay that. And he said the lines around the block. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then the early Tony Robbins story when he was coaching, when he was back here in La Jolla, and he was in Del Mar. I'm sorry, he was in Del Mar. And when he started getting into coaching, he started to raise his prices. And he said the higher he raised the prices, the more people wanted to work with him. Mm-hmm. And when he got to $5,000 for a session, he said the line was around the block again. It was the same kind of thing. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. So my $125 an hour is really scaring them because they don't see the value. Someone's charging so little, how good could they be? And it took me a while to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
And when I got my price up over $1,000, I learned a really good lesson. I should share this with you guys too, that instead of if you're a coach and you're tying your coaching to the clock, in other words, per hour, bad move.
Yes.
Really bad move. So I moved my price up to $1,750 for a session. And the session is you come to me with whatever problem you're coming to me with. It's $1,750 for the one-off session. We're going to work until we get it solved. If it's 1 hour, if it's 2 hours, it's 3 hours. I'm not looking at the clock. I'm looking for the result. And that was a big, big, big mindset shift for me.
Brilliant. Again, and this kind of goes back to, again, when you change your paradigm of how you make decisions. Am I making decisions because I'm a coach and this is what coaches charge? Or am I making a decision because this is what a consultant can charge and this is what the market will bear? Or am I making the decision, I'm a $500,000 a year business owner, and if I want to make that, this is how I structure my offerings. totally different. Like we can kind of unlock that resistance to price changes.
Yeah, and if you can get a person to really see it, and you're right about, changing your environment, change the people you hang out with.
Yeah.
When I started hanging out with people who weren't charging $75 an hour for coaching anymore, it started to make a lot of sense. And it's like, wow, you get people to do that? Early on in our seminar world, when we were 2002, 2003, people were coming up on stage and selling $5,000 products. And I said, that's incredible, because I'm thinking $99, $197, maybe that's a high dollar point, and everyone else is doing $5,000 programs. So if I came up on stage and offered a $97 program, nobody bought it. Just like, who are you? You garbage, get out of here.
So funny.
What a shift, huh?
Yeah, it's all in the perception.
It is. It is. And when I started to hang out with those people who were doing the $5,000 deals, I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to put together a package that's $5,000. And I went up on stage and sure enough sold 6 of them the first time out. And I'm like, wow, I could do this. And all of a sudden now I had the belief, because I had the reference experience of I was able to do it.
Yeah. You're bringing up something that makes me think of the third success barrier that I realized I never got to earlier. And it's we create what's called limiting stories. So whatever our environment is, whatever the conditioning is, whatever we were taught is the right thing to do, either through our parents or through our education system, or maybe you've had specialized training, the model of the world that they operate from is the one we adopt. And so that creates a story. Here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, here's what's okay and socially acceptable, here's what's not okay. And we create this groove in our evolution of, here's who I am, this is why it is the way it is, and this is why I'm going to come up with all of the limitations, excuses, and rationalizations to keep this thing I have right now. And so when you get that your paradigm is actually bigger than that, the world has so much more opportunity in it, because you tap it, you break through that story and you see other people with different stories that are a much more appealing story. You're like, I want that. Then you get to reprogram your story. And here's the really cool thing about stories. They're all made up. Everything you say about why you are where you are and why you have what you have, you made up. It's not the universal truth,
okay,
it's your truth.
You got to repeat this. This is good.
Yes.
Right there. Look at them. Say it again. It's so powerful.
Everything you have right now, every result you have, is a result of your story. And the good thing about stories is they're all made up. You made up this story. You bought into these limitations. You bought into this reality. You let that conditioning keep you here. So the good thing about a story is you can make a new one up. You can make up a better story that gets you the results you want. And when I realized that, it was almost like somebody took the lid off and, the glass ceiling was shattered and I was unstoppable. I was limitless, because we all are. It's our story that we make up that puts the limits on.
And I call it, you and I both follow Esther Hicks and
Yeah.
Abraham Hicks materials, and she always talks about arguing for your limitations.
Yes.
And that's what people are doing. They're really arguing because they really want their story to be real,
Yes.
and they don't want to be told that, that thing that you believe, it's probably not exactly the way you're believing, and it may be a little bit different. No, it's not. Let me tell you about my blend. They go right back into it.
It's your version of
It's
it.
their version of it,
Yes.
exactly. And
Yes.
you have to get past that, and you have to say, okay, I'm willing to be open to the fact that what I believe may not be accurate. There may be something more. And if they're open to that, then that's the door that we need to be able to coach them and be able to get in there and be able to raise them up to the next level.
Yeah, there's something called evidence collecting that we do, and we do it very unconsciously. So this is a much bigger thing. I can't get into the whole thing, but let's just say somewhere, somehow you make a decision about why the world is the way it is around money, success, relationship, whatever it is. And then because as human beings, our ego mind needs to be right, we actually go out and unconsciously attract situations to reinforce that decision. So we are running around collecting evidence and reinforcing that limiting belief and decision our entire life. And then no wonder it's like anchored in and locked into our DNA, which is why I call my program Money DNA, because we literally lock in the money patterns and the success patterns that we have and have to go through this process that I call recoding to unlock them and to create better results.
It really is true. It's because we want to be right? That's the key behind this. Is
Yes.
we want to be right about what we believe.
Ego mind.
The
Ego mind wants to be right.
You have to be right. You have to be right. You have to be right. And you have to be willing to get in there and say, you know what? I could be wrong about this. There could be another way to look at this, or this
Yeah.
could be different than the way I've picked up or the way I believed. Or, I often tell my coaching clients, I said, think about the people who taught you early on in life, all the teachers that you had. How many of them were successful beyond their teaching career? And usually it's donut holes. There's like none. And I said, what are those teachers? They're basically employees, 9-to-5 employees, and they have that mindset, that limiting mindset. And you're coming out here in the entrepreneurial world now where you have limitless opportunity. Guess what? What you learn from them is not going to help you. No knock on the teachers. Teachers did the best they could, right? They can only teach you what they know. That's what they knew. So that's what they taught you. They weren't entrepreneurs for the most part. I had one in college who really just elevated the game quite a bit for me and helped a lot. But the rest of them, no, they were just regular. They were there, collect their paycheck, did what they had to do, and they were out. And here we are out in the real world now. And we've got all these, and we look at our teachers as figures of authority. So when they said something, what did we do with it? We filed it as truth.
Right.
That goes in the truth bucket because the teacher said it. They wouldn't lie to us, would they?
Right. Or we reject it completely, even though it might be helpful. Like sometimes we reject the very thing we need the most, right?
Oh, true.
Because it doesn't fit that paradigm we were conditioned into.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we come out into the real world and we say, okay, we want to do something different. We want to be an entrepreneur. And like you said, the biggest shift is really a mind shift more than is anything. Could anybody become an entrepreneur? I find that there are some people that are not suited for this world, and some other people who can learn to be entrepreneurial. What's your experience on that?
Good question. I actually don't think everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. I actually think that there is such a particular mindset that, and let's define what an entrepreneur is, right? Like an entrepreneur is somebody who's going to take on their own venture. They're responsible for generating their own income. And technically, an entrepreneur is a creator that turns those creations into products that get sold in the marketplace. Okay, a business owner is somebody who builds a business that's hopefully a profitable business that grows and expands how that product gets out into the marketplace. So most entrepreneurs are not necessarily business owners until they learn how to run a business with their product. And if you are not comfortable taking risks, if you are somebody who you need to be told what to do, and you're not comfortable in the creation, implementation, marketing, selling process, you need to really figure out how to master that before you go and quit your corporate job and just think it's all going to magically appear, because that's what I did. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize how hard this was going to be. And again, it's because I saw myself. I didn't want to, I was so afraid to be uncomfortable. I was an anxious person. I still am kind of, like I get anxious. Like I was really anxious as a young person. And it was because I didn't know how to take risks. And I threw myself in the fire and I had to learn how to take risks. And I got really good at taking risks. But if you're not willing to change and grow and evolve, you're going to struggle with being an entrepreneur. But you got to get good at the unknown.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest thing.
I'll give you another take on this that I share with a lot of people too, the word entrepreneur. Do you know what the word entrepreneur means? I know you have a definition for it. Do you know where it comes from?
No. I could make something up about it. But.
It's the French word for undertaker. But not the undertaker that you and I know.
Okay.
Not the funeral director kind of undertaker.
Trying to
but
figure that
the
out.
undertaker is one, it's basically how you would translate directly is one who undertakes. Right? The entrepreneur is one who undertakes, and we know as entrepreneurs how many hats do we wear? All of them.
All of them. So, until you delegate them.
Right. we undertake whatever challenge, whatever thing that we're seeing in front of us, we're going to go for it. And it's a very, very specific mindset. It's also a very difficult mindset to be an employee. I was not a good employee. I got fired more times than ever because I would tell the boss, you don't know how to run your business. This is what you should be doing. And you bump
That's probably a good sign you're an entrepreneur is when you can't work for someone else very well.
I am chronically unemployable for that reason.
Yeah, I was for different reasons. I was like, I got bored. Like I wanted the constant stimulation and creativity to be something that I had the ability to manage, and I wanted my freedom. Like, well, I was in a job where I was traveling somewhere between 200 and 300 days a year. So that was burnout for me. And I know there's a lot of speakers out there, they're like, that's my life. Like, that is not the life I wanted. So I was looking for more freedom over my time. But I mean, massively unemployable because I don't like to be told what to do.
Welcome to my world. I don't like to be told what to do either.
Especially with somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
That's right, no question. Okay, we're about 39 minutes in, and we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook audience. If you guys are enjoying this, I'd invite you to go to themarketingnetwork.tv. Melanie and I are going to continue our conversation. We're going to talk about next is leverage, right? That's the
yes.
next topic you want to cover.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep going here for maybe another 30 minutes or so. So the entire interview will be posted on the marketingnetwork.tv. And if you want to come watch it, you just got to become a member of the website, and it'll be there probably in a couple of days. I think it takes me a couple of days to get the editing done and get it up there, but it'll be available for you. Melanie, thank you so much for doing this. And
Thanks,
thank you guys for watching as well.
Bye.
And we'll continue our conversation offline. Bye, everyone.